On this day, the 14th of November, 1940, the Germans bomb Coventry, destroying much of the city centre, damaging and about a third of the buildings, destroying 400 homes, and turning the great cathedral of Coventry into a ruin. 1940. The war was on, and it had been going on for now over a year. Many parts of Britain had been bombed. This was November, so bombing had been going on since the 3rd of September, the great first attack on East London. It was cold winter, and on this night, the German bombers hovered over Coventry and dropped their loads upon the unsuspecting citizens of the city. Before the war, Coventry had one of the greatest number of medieval buildings still standing in all of England for a city of its size. Coventry had been the most important city in the Midlands throughout the Middle Ages up until the industrial era. Birmingham and the Black Country are now a far larger conurbation than Coventry, somewhere in the region of 3 million people within that whole area. But back in the Middle Ages, Birmingham was a small little town. Wolverhampton was another small little town. But during the medieval times, Coventry was a large, bustling town. So that's the reason it used to be such a beautiful city with all the medieval townhouses and inns and churches and the great cathedral. Unfortunately now, it's missing its great cathedral. I remember visiting Coventry and seeing the old ruin of a cathedral and the nice new modern one. The modern one looks a bit like a big industrial shed. The ruins of the old still outshines it. I don't know why they just didn't restore that rather than build the industrial shed next to it. However, on this day, the Germans bombed Coventry. It started at about 8 p.m. The first wave, they dropped high explosives. The second wave came later and they started dropping incendiaries. Incendiaries led to a firestorm which destroyed much of the city centre. The cathedral was hit, but the firemen put the first fires out and managed to save the cathedral initially. However, as the firestorm took hold in the city centre, there wasn't much that they could do, and ended up destroying the roof and some of the towers. A great pity. During this raid, 4,300 homes were destroyed. As I said, 2/3 of the buildings in the city centre were damaged. 568 were killed and 863 injured. There had been 17 smaller raids earlier on from the beginning of the Blitz, but none of them had been as bad as this, and no town had been this badly damaged. Even London, there were neighbourhoods that had been very badly damaged, but not the entire thing. Whereas Coventry, the whole centre was destroyed. Now there was a theory that went about, I remember hearing about it when I was a bit younger, that the government knew that the Germans were going to bomb Coventry on the night, and they decided to allow it to happen because they didn't want them to know that they had broken their codes. However, it seems that they did know a raid was going to happen, but they thought it was going to be on London. Churchill was thinking they were going to bomb Westminster, so the Palace of Westminster and Downing Street, that sort of area, the ministries. And what they got, they didn't have any reference to Coventry. They had various codes. So they knew that something was going to happen, and the route that the planes were taking at the time, again, they assumed it would be Birmingham or Wolverhampton. They would attack, Birmingham and Wolverhampton being much more industrialized than Coventry. So they knew something was going to happen, they knew it would be big. They had an idea, but Churchill thought it would be London, and various others thought it would be the larger cities in the Midlands. So it doesn't look like they sacrificed Coventry on purpose, that it happened. They knew something was going to happen, and they tried their best with what they had to take the planes down or to keep them away from the city. The raid itself, although it did a lot of damage to the city, destroyed the great cathedral and killed quite a few people, within a few weeks, all of the industries that they were aiming for were up and running again. This happened quite a lot with the bombing. It doesn't seem that it's all that effective. The bombing in Germany towards the end of the war was effective in cutting down German oil production. They were using coal to turn into oil, so it did work in that way. But overall, hitting factories here and there, it seems it wasn't terribly effective. You just repair the factory very quickly, or you move the factory. So it seems that all this bombing didn't really get anyone very far. So, on this day, 14th of November, 1940, the Blitz on Coventry, which left what was once a gorgeous city, well, it's not very gorgeous anymore. If you like these videos, come back tomorrow for more. Subscribe, comment, and like.